The crystalline spires of the Galactic Council chamber reached toward distant stars, their surfaces refracting light in patterns that seemed designed to make visiting species feel small and insignificant. Admiral Kira Reeves refused to be intimidated. She stood before the assembled representatives of over 300 spacefaring civilizations, her military dress uniform crisp, despite the 18-hour journey through hyperspace to reach this neutral meeting ground. High Counselor Zenith Tilara, a being of shifting iridescent light contained within an environmental field, pulsed with what Kira had learned to recognize as barely contained disdain. The human delegation continues to waste our time with these assertions of capability. Your species has barely mastered rudimentary spaceflight. Kira allowed herself a small smile. With respect, High Counselor, you mistake physical presence for technological advancement. We chose not to expand rapidly into space. That choice was not born of inability. A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. The Drachnid representative, General Vorkath, rose from his seat, his scaled armor catching the light. You stand here alone, while our combined fleet approaches your world. This is not a negotiation, human. This is a courtesy notification of your species' impending integration into the Galactic Commonwealth. Integration, Kira repeated, letting the word hang in the air. An interesting euphemism for conquest, General. But you're wrong about one thing. I'm not here to negotiate. She activated the holographic display embedded in her uniform's sleeve. Above her, a countdown materialized in brilliant red numerals, using the standard galactic time format. 30 minutes. What is the meaning of this theatrics? Demanded Vorkath, mandibles kicking in irritation. This is the time remaining before your fleet enters Earth's defensive sphere, Kira explained calmly. I'm here to give you one last chance to recall them. Laughter erupted through the chamber, a cacophony of different species expressing the same sentiment, dismissal. High Counselor, Tilara's form rippled with amusement. Your bravado is admirable, if foolish. Our fleet consists of over 2,000 warships, each capable of reducing a continent to ash. What possible defense could Earth mount against such force? Kira thought of the quantum displacement array hidden beneath the lunar surface, of the years of secret development, while humanity pretended to stumble through basic space exploration, of the simulations that showed what would happen when it was activated, of the price they would all pay for the Council's arrogance. We investigated your world thoroughly, continued Tilara. Your orbital defenses are primitive. Your ground-based weapons would be useless against our shields. Your artificial satellites are laughably vulnerable. Yes, Kira agreed. You've investigated everything we wanted you to see. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty passed through Tilara's luminescent form. Explain. Humanity has a long history of being underestimated, Kira said, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. We've learned to use that to our advantage. While your observers watched our space programs, counted our satellites, and measured our weapons, we were working on something else entirely. Something your sensors can't detect because you don't know what to look for. General Vorkath leaned forward, his earlier amusement fading. You're bluffing. 25 minutes, Kira responded, gesturing to the countdown. Recall your fleet, and you'll never have to find out. The chamber erupted in heated debate. Some representatives called for immediate action. Others dismissed her claims entirely. Through it all, Kira stood silent, watching the numbers tick down. In her earpiece, a secure quantum channel crackled to life. Admiral, came the voice of Dr. Raj Patel, lead scientist on the displacement project. Array is charged and locked on target, awaiting your command. Kira didn't respond, couldn't, in front of the council, but she squared her shoulders. They had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but they had prepared for it nevertheless. High Counselor, Talara's voice cut through the chaos. Enough. Admiral Reeves, you will cease this pointless display. Your world will be integrated into the Commonwealth. This is not a choice. This is not a negotiation. This is the natural order of things. Natural order, Kira echoed. Interesting choice of words. We've studied your history, you know. How many species have you integrated this way? How many civilizations have you deemed too primitive to have a choice in their own destiny? We bring order to chaos, Talara declared. We elevate primitive species to. You enslave them. Kira interrupted, her voice sharp. You take their resources, their autonomy, their right to self-determination. You wrap it in pretty words about order and elevation, but it's conquest, plain and simple. She gestured to the countdown, now showing 15 minutes. And you've finally found a species that can stop you. General Vorkath stood, his massive form casting a shadow over the chamber. This defiance will be remembered, human. Your people will learn submission the hard way. No, Kira said quietly. We won't. 10 minutes remained on the countdown when the council formally rejected her warning. 5 minutes when they ordered her escort from the chamber. 1 minute when she received confirmation that the fleet had entered Earth's defensive sphere. In her earpiece, Dr. Petal's voice was grim. They're in position, Admiral. Do we proceed? Kira looked up at the assembled council one last time. You had your chance, she said softly, then subvocalized into her secure comm. Execute. The quantum displacement array activated, and humanity showed the galaxy exactly how dangerous underestimating them could be. The bridge of the Commonwealth flagship, Eternal Dawn, hummed with activity as Admiral Supreme Xarleth watched Earth grow larger on the main viewport. 2,000 ships moved in perfect formation, a display of power meant to cow the primitive humans into submission. He had overseen dozens of integrations before. This would be no different. Status report, he commanded, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light of distant stars. All ships in attack formation, Admiral, his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Neller reported. Her tentacles moved gracefully across the holographic controls. Earth's defensive platforms are exactly as our intelligence reported. Minimal threat. Xarleth allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The humans' pathetic warning through their representative had been amusing, nothing more. These primitives always tried to bluff their way out of integration. It never worked. Sir, Naira's voice carried a note of confusion. I'm detecting an unusual energy signature from their moon. Specify. I can't, sir. Our sensors aren't recognizing the pattern. It's as if. The universe blinked. There was no other way to describe it. One moment, the fleet was in perfect formation. The next, Xarleth watched in horror, as 1/3 of his ships simply ceased to exist. No explosions, no debris. They were simply gone. Report. He roared, his crystalline form vibrating with shock. Multiple ships. Sir, we've lost contact with the entire 7th Division. The void they occupied, it's as if space itself has been folded. Another blink. This time, Tarbeth saw it happen. Space around his remaining ships seemed to twist, like fabric being wrung by invisible hands. Where ships had been, empty void remained. No radiation signature. No wreckage. Nothing. Impossible, he whispered. His tactical officer, a being of pure energy contained in a mechanized shell, spoke up. Sir, We're detecting similar energy buildups across multiple vectors. Whatever they're using, they're not done. In the council chamber, High Counselor Talara watched the tactical display with growing horror. The human Admiral Reeves remained standing where she had been when the demonstration began, her expression neutral, but her eyes hard. "What have you done?" Talara demanded, her luminescent form flickering with agitation. "We call it quantum displacement," Reeves explained calmly. "Your ships aren't destroyed. They've been relocated to precisely calculated points across the galaxy. Most of them will need about 3 years at maximum speed to return home." General Vorkath lunged forward, claws extended. "You dare." "I wouldn't," Reeves interrupted, not even flinching. "The array is still active. Would you like to see what happens when we target a point inside this chamber?" The threat hung in the air like a blade. Back at the fleet, Xarleth watched helplessly as his forces were systematically dismantled. Not destroyed, that might have been easier to accept. Instead, ship after ship vanished, scattered across the stars like seeds in the wind. "Sir," Naira's voice was barely a whisper. "We're receiving transmissions from some of the displaced ships. They're reporting positions anywhere from 50 to 3,000 light-years from Earth." Zarleth's tactical officer spoke again, voice tight with stress. "Admiral, the energy signature is building again. But this time it's different. Stronger. Evasive action." Xarleth commanded, but even as he gave the order, he knew it was futile. Whatever the humans had created, it operated on principles his people had never even conceived of. The final blink came. When it was done, only a single ship remained in Earth orbit, the flagship itself. Around it, space had become a graveyard of absence, places where mighty warships had been moments before, now nothing but empty void. A communication channel opened. Admiral Reeves's face appeared on the main viewport, her expression still carefully neutral. "Admiral Tsarleth," she said, "your fleet has been neutralized without a single casualty. A demonstration of both our capability and our restraint. You're being allowed to return to the Council with your flagship intact. Consider it a courtesy and a warning." In the council chamber, the representatives sat in stunned silence. Talara's luminescent form had dimmed to barely a flicker. "You've had centuries to study the universe," Reeves continued, addressing both the fleet admiral and the council. "But you became complacent. You assumed that because we didn't show our hand, we had nothing to play. That because we didn't expand like you did, we couldn't. You never stopped to consider that we might have chosen a different path." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Humanity developed this technology not because we wanted to fight, but because we knew that someday we would have to defend ourselves against those who wouldn't take no for an answer. Today was that day." General Vorkath, his earlier bravado completely evaporated, spoke in a hoarse whisper. "What do you want?" "The same thing we wanted before, to be left alone to develop at our own pace, make our own choices, and determine our own destiny. The only difference is that now you understand we have the means to enforce that desire." As the implications of what had happened began to sink in, the council chamber erupted in chaos. Centuries of assumed superiority had been upended in minutes. The natural order, as they had called it, had been revealed as nothing more than comfortable illusion. And in the center of it all, Admiral Kira Reeves stood straight and proud, a living reminder that humanity would never again be underestimated. Commander Varix of the Drachnid Intelligence Division paced the length of his private chambers aboard the Council's intelligence hub, his scales shifting colors with agitation. Holographic displays surrounded him, showing the same data he'd been studying for the past 3 cycles. Data that made absolutely no sense. "Play it again," he commanded, and the recording of Earth's quantum displacement attack flickered to life around him. He'd watched it thousands of times now, trying to understand how they'd all been so blind. The humans hadn't just developed impossible technology. They'd hidden it completely from the most sophisticated surveillance network in known space. A soft chime announced the arrival of his research lead, Dr. Ixel. The avian scientist's feathers were ruffled, a sign of extreme distress. "Report," Varix demanded. "It's worse than we thought, Commander." Ixel's voice trembled. "We've finished analyzing the energy signatures from the displacement event. The humans weren't using their full capabilities. Based on our calculations, they could have sent our ships much farther than just a few thousand light years." Varix's scales shifted to a deep blue of concern. "Explain." "The quantum displacement technology they demonstrated. It's scalable. They could theoretically relocate entire star systems if they wanted to." They showed restraint. The word hung in the air between them. Restraint. Not weakness, not limitation, but choice. The humans had chosen to demonstrate their power without causing casualties. The implications were staggering. Meanwhile, in a secure conference chamber deep within the Council headquarters, High Councillor Talara was facing a crisis of her own. The Council was fracturing, with different factions arguing over how to respond to the human threat, or if it even was a threat. "They could have killed everyone in that fleet," argued Representative Kylthan of the Centauri Collective. Instead, they chose to prove their point without bloodshed. That speaks to their character. It speaks to their arrogance, countered Delegate Mox of the hegemony. They humiliated the Council deliberately. Such an insult cannot stand. Talara's form pulsed with frustration. "And what would you suggest, Delegate?" "Another military action. Need I remind you that our entire fleet was scattered across the galaxy with technology we cannot even begin to understand?" The chamber doors slid open, admitting Admiral Reeves and her newly appointed diplomatic attaché, Ambassador Julian Torres. The room fell silent. "Your council session has been broadcasting on an open channel," Reeves noted dryly. "We thought it might be productive to join the discussion about our arrogance." Ambassador Torres stepped forward, his dark eyes scanning the assembled representatives. "We understand this is a difficult adjustment for you all. For centuries, the Council has operated under certain assumptions about technological progression and species development. We've proven those assumptions wrong, and that's uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable?" Delegate Mox sputtered. "You've upended the entire galactic order." "An order based on forced integration and technological suppression," Torres countered smoothly. Perhaps it needed appending. In his chambers, Varix was reaching a similar conclusion. As he studied the data, a pattern was emerging, not in the technology itself, but in humanity's approach to development. They had done everything differently, defying every model the Council used to predict species advancement. "Commander," Dr. Ixel interrupted his thoughts. "There's something else. We've detected similar energy signatures, much fainter, around other parts of their solar system. They've been testing this technology for years, right under our sensors." Varix's scales shifted to the white of revelation. They knew we were watching. They knew exactly what we were looking for, and they showed us exactly what we expected to see. He laughed, a harsh sound. "We pride ourselves on our intelligence gathering, but they turned our own prejudices against us." Back in the Council chamber, the debate had taken a new turn. Representative Kylthan had proposed something unprecedented, a complete reassessment of the Council's integration protocols. If we missed this level of advancement in humanity, she argued, what else have we missed? How many other species have we underestimated? Admiral Reeves listened silently, but Ambassador Torres stepped forward again. We're not here to dismantle your civilization or challenge your authority over genuinely primitive species that need guidance. We're here to establish that humanity will chart its own course, and to suggest that perhaps other species you've deemed primitive deserve the same chance. Tilara's form twisted with inner conflict. Centuries of certainty were crumbling, replaced by uncomfortable questions. And if we refuse to change, if we maintain our current protocols for other species, then we'll demonstrate our technology again, Reeves said quietly. But next time, perhaps not so gently. The threat wasn't spoken with malice or aggression, just quiet certainty. In his chambers, Varix felt a shiver run down his spine as he realized the full implications of the humans' capability. They could reshape the galaxy itself if they chose to. Dr. Ixel's voice interrupted his thoughts once more. Commander, I finished the preliminary analysis of their quantum mechanics theory. It's beautiful. They took a completely different approach to understanding space-time than any species in Council records. They didn't follow our development path because they found a better one. Varix stared at the holographic displays, watching again as the mighty Council fleet vanished in the blink of an eye. No, he said softly, they found their own path. And now we have to decide if we're wise enough to learn from them, or foolish enough to stand in their way. In the Council chamber, the debate raged on, but the outcome was already becoming clear. The galaxy was changing, and at its heart was a species that had turned centuries of assumptions upside down. Humanity hadn't just demonstrated superior technology, they had demonstrated a superior way of thinking. Continued,